ESL presents ESL Challenger League in partnership with Intel, Acer Predator, DHL,
All right, bear with me for a second here, Vincent, as I try to get through this. It's going to be a mouthful. ESL Challenger League Season 51, North America, Cup number 3. Listen, I'm glad that we're being brought on for these games. It's always a lot of fun, but could they do any better of a job of making these titles any easier? My name being Why Not. Glad to be with you for this one, buddy. How you feeling about Zomblers and lag?
Feeling pretty good, to be honest with you. I especially feel good that you and I get to take a peek back towards lag after we got to cast their honestly downfall in the last cup. Like, that was a big storyline over the course of that cup, so I'm glad to be able to kind of continue that conversation into this one. Back though into another game where you and I have seen and watched the Zomblers team for quite a while. I'm glad to see them once again. Of course, some big changes being made over there over the recent month or so, so lots to talk about, lots to get into.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that we're probably not going to be seeing any shortage of changes in the upcoming months as the player break post-major is going to be upon us. But for now, they're going to be playing out and hoping that they can make the best with what all these teams in ECL currently have to offer. And I think it's been certainly pretty turbulent, I will say, for this cryptic lag. It's had its ups. It's certainly had a couple of dips and downs. The prize pool right now still sitting at about $17,500 that these teams are vying for. No short chunk of change for a lot of these teams that are, pretty much living and dying off of the competition circuit that North America has been able to push forward for us. And frankly, I think we're in a pretty blessed period of time where I feel like a lot of players and teams can, stay afloat because of all these prize pools that they now have offered to them.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think lots of opportunities, especially considering that some of the, tippity top teams within ECL as well, or at least within that caliber, aren't often taking part because they're taking part in other LAN events, whether that be, here in North America or over in Europe. So I think that, those are especially good opportunities. This is the lower side of our bracket, by the way. With the way things are going, lag, they're down here just because they had to forfeit, I think because of travel, is what I would imagine. They had to forfeit their upper bracket game, so that was to In Control, but they couldn't play that matchup, so that's why they're down in the lower bracket. Easy win for them against Surge. It was a lot closer against Boss, but like you were highlighting in our green room, they got the revenge from their loss at LAN to that Boss team. Good news for them, leading them to the Zomblers game.
Yeah, and I think that the Zomblers as well, talking about the path that they've taken, not necessarily one of I would say, very much difficulty as far as being able to take wins over the aforementioned Surge, and then being able to find Rain above, also in a little bit of a weaker state, as they've just lost Swayu, who has gone on LFT, whether or not, I don't recall whether or not that was a benching or whether that was a public removal of himself for personal reasons or whatever the case may be, but, you know, they made their way on into that Regain matchup, and that's where things got a little bit hot. That's where things got a little bit interesting, considering the fact that they're playing with Mello and not Hambuga tonight. That was the same case for that matchup. He was there, unfortunately, at the bottom of the board, but I mean, really, what can you give any more as the level of expectation from your sub? But that's where Grape was actually playing with Regain, and that's the player that Zomblers had actually just lost in parting mutual ways as of recently. So that one couldn't have felt very good, especially now that they are in the lower bracket with their backs up against the wall.
Yeah, I mean, and especially when you're talking about, what is that, a quad overtime on Dust 2 that I'm looking at, 25-21, that they played over there. That was in that Regain matchup, so definitely an interesting situation. That was actually 2-1, by the way. That was that Dust 2 that Zomblers were able to win, not 2-0 like the graphic says. But the point being that, you know, it's been a back and forth situation for the Zomblers, and up and down generality for them, just because of all the roster moves that they've had to weather the storm through. And I mean, I say that with regard to both, you know, the end of last year and continuing into the beginning of this year. Feels like a weird spot for Zomblers to be, especially considering that, like, I'm generally cheering for Zomblers. Like, I really like this core of Cajun, Coolcoms, and Poseidon. Like, this is a quality team, but trying to find the correct fill-in it's been pretty tough, unfortunately, and it's another situation where I honestly am not quite sure if, you know, bringing back Fire, bringing back Hambuga, who is the actual fifth situation here. Mello will be playing tonight. You'll see on the graphic here in a moment, but you know, I don't know if that's the long-term strategy that I personally am behind.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit confused myself. This is, I think, the third time that Fire has been brought back to this team. It was Tsunami initially, who then he had done a little bit of a one-for-oneer, I believe, with Stamina as he went over to take flight. And then he had rejoined for when they were Legacy Kingdom. They then became this Zomblers team and then benched again, brought back for this time, maybe even missing one instance of that somewhere along those lines. But 3 is already a little bit of a question mark in some capacity to see whether or not this one will be the charm, the third time, that is. And I think it's certainly been, at least for, you know, if we're going to be talking about Fire specifically in isolation, you know, separated from everybody else, he hasn't really been blowing me away anymore, or less, I guess, than Grape or Polo were. But I do think I'm going to need to see a little bit more in from his direction if we're not going to have Hambuga in the server with us today.
I do feel like the ceiling from a guy like Grape definitely was a little bit higher than what I've seen from Fire over the last, like, 3 or 4 months. But yeah, you know, I think that's a valid perspective to be bringing. This lag roster, though, listen, I want to kind of go back and shift your mind back before into a previous ECL Cup, because we were talking about them within Cup 2 and discussing it as essentially an event that was lags to win. They did not win that event. In fact, they got big upset by SBE in the game you and I got to call. And I think that in general, this lag team, lots of positivity about where they're at, but the fact that the cryptic change comes through, it definitely looks a little bit tough to start. It's gotten better as time goes on, which isn't a surprise to me. I don't think that's crazy. But it's still a question. Are the heights, is the ceiling of this lag team going to be the same? Because I do think there's a chance that their floor has been raised. At least that's me kind of painting a pretty picture. But if I was painting with an uglier brush, you could definitely argue the other direction.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to look back to that first of the ECL Cups where they had faced off against M80 in their opener. Tough, you know, unlucky. It's not really an easy one you're going to be able to overcome. Then it was In Control who they faced up next, and they had been defeated in the best of 3 at all 3 maps. You go into that next ECL Cup, the second that you were just referring to, a much deeper affair there, but even still with notable losses at which you yourself had also made notable. And I think that we're going to be going into this last time that they had played and looking at that, you know, defeat at their opponent's hands, Zomblers, and they're going to be thinking to themselves, well, obviously a little bit of a different composition, but even now at a slightly weakened state now with Mello, can they, even with a shifted veto or map pool, do anything about that one? And I look at the 2 players on your screen, because in my opinion, Poseidon is always going to be that guy who needs to be in the server, a non-starter if he isn't going to be able to compete with Consti.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. He needs to be the guy primarily that is kind of lifting things off the ground for this Zomblers team, because a map here and there, right? The rest of the Zomblers roster, they can have the level of impact that's necessary for there to be this to be more competitive. But as a whole, it's got to be Poseidon, and of course we've talked about how good Consi has been, how consistent the Consi has been as of late. But changes to the way in which they are approaching this veto, with Inferno being banned, that's something that can be a little bit of a surprise for Zomblers. They go instead towards an Ancient, which definitely a quality map, a map that this Zomblers roster has loved in the past, has looked good on in the past. Now granted, it's a really, really good map for lag, and I think that's where you not lose me, but I get concerned. You follow on to see a Mirage picked by lag, kind of feels like very much a middle of the ground type of opportunity. I know their win rate looks really good. I think they're beatable on that map, but still a really good Mirage team. Dust 2, our decider, I highlighted before that Dust 2 has been a map to go to for Zomblers, but it's been shaky. They went, what was it? I said quad OT or something in that regain match. So that's where the shakiness comes from. I don't know about you, but this veto still tells me that this should be a lag victory.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm in a little bit of a different camp than you are, maybe on Ancient in particular, whereas you built it up to be one of those where it's like, yeah, sure, historically Zomblers likes it, which is true, but lag should still be taking it. I find to be that the stand-in situation might actually make things a little bit less pressure-filled. I'd like to see that be the case at the very least, with Mello being at least a vocal player, although he might not walk into the server and be the one you expect to put up the highest numbers. I think that a little bit of comfortability for a player like Poseidon to be able to float around where he's got that in his in-game leader, as well as a player who he's been more than enough time played with in previous teams as well. So I think that the Ancient is going to be a little bit scarier, or at least I hope it is going to be for Zomblers than maybe we're anticipating it to be. It's that third map where I get a little bit more shaky and a little bit more questionable as to what to come to expect. Like Mirage, I mean, I think that one can be quote-unquote analyzed only so far. I mean, get into a good match of Mirage on a good day, and there's really no telling what might go down, to be honest with you. Or at least that's how I feel. But that third map, that Dust 2, which we have already seen, which we have already witnessed, a pretty close affair between the two of these rosters, but in different formations. I think that one is going to be where, are we going to see a leveled up lag since even then, without Wolf and with Cryptic, or if Zomblers actually going to be able to pull the wool from over their eyes with that shift?
Yeah, I think my biggest struggle right now in this head-to-head matchup is that I don't necessarily see where the rifling firepower is going to come from for Zomblers. At least not consistent in this specific matchup, because I think that on any given map you can see the step up in performance from a guy like Cajun, right? Cool Comms has been pretty darn good. Like I want to give credit where it's due. Cool Comms has actually stats wise been solid enough. But
it's just like who competes with like Sandman, for example.
Sandman, I'm probably taking. Yeah, exactly. And I don't know that there's a guy. I really don't think there is. And to be honest, Wukong's and Sandman, it's like not even, it's a weird head-to-head, because like that doesn't even make full sense. Like, they're different in the way that they're approaching these roles. So I don't know. I'm a little concerned for Zomblers in that case, and that's where I'm at coming into Ancient, especially when you're talking about Poseidon being your most important player. Bro's the opper and he's starting T-side Ancient. That is one of the toughest places to be as an op player who needs impact.
P250 already making itself known. That is a wonderful tap out to Cryptic, who had just barely shown himself for all but 2 shots to leave the chamber. Hammer now playing on the back ends of this site, though, is just going to be hopping out and trying to maybe make a little bit of space whilst periodically peeking and sending shots in their direction, hoping to get something for them, but they will predominantly, I feel like, be letting over a plant. Maybe not. Maybe they'll try and play prior to the retake process, and it might actually get them a round loss.
That's ambitious. I love the flashbang that comes flying in from CT. It's effective, but there's too many bodies, and unfortunately lag don't quite connect the dots on that. So everybody goes down in the process of trying to get back in, leaves Consi all alone 1v5. He'll just, I would hope, be falling back at some point. A real world in which he can give this a full go or a try. Yeah. Obviously talking about Zomblers and maybe some win conditions here. Getting a pistol round early, definitely going to be one of those. Add more where that comes from. And, to be fair, right, we were talking about, like, the firepower difference. Mello individually, I don't really think has been at his peak for a while, but yeah, I've certainly seen him put some good performances down on Agent before.
I think he's definitely a sub that you won't be all too frustrated to have in your back pocket if you are this roster for reasons already aforementioned. Lag right now are going to be considerably diving numbers in towards the top side of shelf, and that distance that MP5 honestly gets that headshot at, let alone additional damage onto Poseidon, kind of forces their hand into A.
That is crazy that range is where an AK loses, and Cameron is going to win more fights through the edge of the wall and the smoke that he delivers. Cameron's still alive, looking good, and the reload's just not the time. Consti comes flying through, and he's now got audio cues onto Cajun. That is where he's running. The bomb in hand, at least the bomb plant is going to be coming in. But a win, that's the question. I doubt we're going to be seeing that.
Yeah, I don't know. This is a pretty big ask in order. There's two players side by side, so the trade may have been inevitable. And that MP5, again, even getting additional change, pardon. 3 players staying alive. What a huge victory for Lag. This is going to be one in their back pocket that may linger in the backs of the minds of all these Zomblers players for the next couple of rounds, or at the very least looking back on the half if the score is to evade them. Oh, they have a considerable amount less money than I had actually thought they would here, Zomblers, given that plant off. That is a toughie. I don't really know if you can justify going for a full buy right now to try and get back at Lag. I think you should probably just stay cool.
Yeah, I can't believe they have so little money considering the bomb. But that's exactly what they're going to do. Go for an eco. I do think that, Cajun's a guy where cooler heads typically will prevail when it comes to those types of economic decisions. Actually met with an incendiary. It's probably going to stall them a bit. Smokes are already out. Yeah, they kind of have to go here. I say that. Poseidon actually has the bomb, and he's outside of mid. So go they will, but the bomb isn't really here. Seems a little bit of an odd decision for me.
Dabs in either side of that smoke. Bit of a whiffer from the Galil, and maybe a commitment from Consti without anybody necessarily all that close to help him out. Eventually, they're on that back wall. They won't be called. Everyone will die out, but it wasn't very pretty. But a win is a win, let alone with 4 still standing. Upgrades from those AKs they had gotten in the last round carried over once more. And this is the buy from Zomblers that, honest and truthfully, is operating up against a bonus, and this is going to be where you could probably stretch your creative freedoms a little bit and get a little bit creative and kooky if you are Lag, knowing that you got daylight robbery in round number 2.
Yeah, stole that momentum away easily from Zomblers. It's like wheels in order to get the full utility belts. Indeed. Oh, Cameron.
Oh, no.
Oh, Cameron. I mean, he basically went 100-0. I think a nade helped him out, sure, but that is painful. I guess it was a flash. He might have been blinded. And speaking of blind, Cryptic can't see a damn thing. That's an ugly mid protocol set up here by Lag, and it's only made better by the fact Sandman can't be touched. Sandman pivoting back and forth, left and right, but hold on, Cajun. He's got a deep position inside of CT. Consti seems to be somewhat aware of this fact. But how deep are they going to check into this? Cajun will clearing it. Double swing could come through. No, Consti isn't quite ready. It's 2 separate fights. Cajun can't deliver the second, so Poseidon will need a clutch.
He can do it, definitely. He's got the power of anonymity, but not any longer. He's going to send out a shoulder shot, minimal damage onto DJ. They've got nades. If they want to wait it, they can. 2 players not separated by any meaningful obstacles. They can go together. This is not going to be a tap. It is the full-on stick. They are in. One against this wall, still sliding. Throws out an incendiary, which will not burn him. He can hold this angle tight. He would have needed that kill right then and there, though, I believe. In order to isolate the next of them in DJ, Consti had to go down. That is an absolutely beautiful round out from particularly Sandman. But Consti showing up at the end and not really leaving all too much to the imagination onto that retake. A good protocol from those two, but in mid, yeah, I mean, just torn player by player, one after another, apart from, frankly, huge misplays, it felt like, from Lag in the beginnings. So it's a weird duality of man moment.
Yeah, I feel like that just can't happen. Sandman can't be allowed to be swinging 3 times in Red Room. It's an ugly start to the round for Lag, no doubt, 100%. But that's, I think, inherently part of the problem that you and I are feeling when we're talking about this matchup. You know, Sandman's capability to recover those types of situations is untouched in comparison to anything that Zomblers has on offer.
And that's already very early, too, in this series that we're seeing that. Provably.
Yeah.
It's no longer just a hypothesis, frankly. It's already been tested. Okay, well, if we consider... What the hell is going on right now in mid? Cameron and Cryptic, again, made to be, frankly, foolish by a Tech 9. A singular.
Yeah.
I don't even understand.
Via Cajun, who's just cut off the entirety of this A side as well. Fire could even find a little bit more. Surely cleared, there we go. But trying to, you know, get recovery information. Oh, and Consti not really ready for Cajun to have still been continuing deeper into spawn.
Oh no, man.
Just a lot of ugliness right now for Lag. I mean, miscue on the flash. That was part of the problem. That was the mid issues last round as well. This is a little bit crazy to me.
Cajun just W-keyed their entire team.
On for an ace, man.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not happy with that one in the slightest. That's a round back in demo review that, frankly, is going to be one where there's probably a lot of arguing going on in the comms. I'm not saying that that's happening in the server at that point. I'm saying that when they do go back and watch it, there's probably going to be choice words for everybody in that moment. What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? A lot of that being thrown back and forth because, frankly, what are we doing in mid? What is the ultimate goal? Where are the positions that we're holding? What do we know to be capped and what not to be? What information do we have? What information do we lack? Because it seems like there's a whole hell of a lot of it going all around. How do they feel so safe? 2 players.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I do love to see Lag taking time out, get Aryo on the mic, and maybe just discuss what the problem was there. Because it's clear that there's some miscommunications happening with the mid protocols. 100%. I think that is #1 priority, considering the fact that we've seen 5 rounds and Lag have the lead, but they lost the pistol. It's just been a lot of chaos. So, how to change the chaos into something more reasonable? That's the question. They have the guns to do so. And they'll pick themselves up. And I did say that, you know, Cajun is capable of like, being an individual for this Zomblers team every once in a while.
Yeah.
And to be fair, you know, he did that last round.
All right, here we go. Okay, shelf spams. 1 player sent up. Cryptic does also have DJ on the opposite end of this smoke, so both of their bases are covered. Cameron taking a little bit of flack in the bottom end of mid as he's on solo duty in that capacity for at least this point in time. Both DJ and Cryptic getting inside of Cave now as Cameron has not yet fully forfeited mid, but soon enough may need to deepen himself for them to be more safe in this avenue, in this approach of Cryptic in the corner and DJ playing on the jiggle. It should be pretty nice, honestly, to get early info on warning, but a kill would be cool, but they're gonna back out off that. I mean, they don't have a lot of nades in general to play with. This might be a retake scenario they're prepping for early.
Also a donut smoke that's just been placed on the A side of the map by Zomblers. Pressure applied, that's via Mello, who's also throwing flashes in order to take A main control, or at least fake as if that's what's happening. Reassembly towards elbow. Lag off of mid for now, just with 1 man towards house. That's Cryptic. Be smoked off. No vision. The nade. He serviceables. It gives Consti just a little bit of a look-see in through it. 1 vision. Acquired. Not enough from that point on. Cameron, the only defender. The rotation. Fast on the way, and unfortunately Cameron can't deliver anything. Great shot from Consti. Stays alive. Molly will hold him back in the meantime and will allow for some time for Lag to get back into position. 4v4.
This is going to be a lot of trust in their individuals right now put forth, Poseidon being one of them. He's the op on the line. Wukong's actually feels invigorated after that frag had gone down to peek on in. Works well. Player at the box doesn't even have to move, doesn't even need to jiggle. Poseidon still having the next point if it were even needed. They will get that bomb off. It will detonate, and they'll likely get 2 players still standing, Lag, but ultimately it was the round that was forfeited after the point of that first, I feel like. The spearhead of the sniper rifle that's only now just been heard.
Yeah, I feel like Lag actually gave up on that a little bit fast for my liking, especially when they had a kid on DJ, but, you know, understandably, they had lost the numbers. Not that they ever had the numbers advantage. It was 4v4 at that point, but still, Zomblers getting themselves into a position where they feel a little bit better, a little bit more confident. I do rate their T-side. I don't know what the stats say. I mean, I'll go look real fast. T-side on Ancient, but... yeah, I mean, close to a 50% win rate. I do think that Zomblers quite capable here.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, definitely one of these maps that you don't really forget how to play, I feel like, either, you know? Like, they probably have a lot of small details, as mentioned earlier, between Mellow and Poseidon in particular, that make it a little bit easier and more free-flowing than your average substitute situation. It's like riding a bike. And right now, honestly, I feel like Cajun, he's certainly gotten himself some speed picked up. 9 and 5, the opening pick here, not allowing Sandman to get away, as he does have an affinity for trying to get down the ramp early, actually, every now and again. So, good catch.
Cryptic.
Oh.
Not quite.
That looked on for me, but I'm a laggy little guy.
It was close. I mean, he had the pre-aim. Looked good. Not good enough. Deliver that. A AWP for Consti. Given over by DJ. The rifle recovered via him as well. This is not a particularly winnable round, but it is winnable, especially when Consti has just taken Cajun out of the equation.
Yeah, I just wonder if they're going to take any further risks right now, Lag. And it seems like they've actually already pined for somewhat of a stack. I don't know, you can't really call it that. They're just more precautious of that mid to A split more than anything else. And hold on a dang second. That might have been the perfect maneuver, because here comes the pit stop of the off. Constantly a rare miss, actually, as they get across his first shot, and the next of them even easier. They've got a nade out in hand, and I don't know what the hell Cameron is thinking this game. Another moment where he just doesn't seem to know what's open to him. He's got his back completely turned, facing main. Constantly cannot peek. A lapse in judgment, a lapse in comms, whatever the case, but still DJ, still a rifle, and still an op to walk, as he needs to get around this one, but Poseidon should be holding him, so it's going to be a matter of time before you hear that boom.
No flashes, no utility either, so DJ has to be the initiator. Consti being held, as you said, and now Poseidon needs the clutch, delivers it, and does beautifully as the flick comes through. Zomblers lead on Ancient once more. Flash back to the pistol round where that was the case for just a moment. T-side getting flowing. As Lag definitely finding some problems here. I mean, I'm glad that you mentioned Cameron's struggles, because that isn't the first time, as you were talking about, that we've seen him just a little bit slow to react. And that's another one of those examples where he is caught napping a bit. Can't continue to happen. Talked about it in mid as well.
Yeah, I was actually going to double down on that, so I'm glad that's a segue that we have to talk about now. And him being the mid player really doesn't help his case, right? Like, that is a high-impact position that he needs to be upon. Even if he isn't getting kills, the impact of his life is extremely important as well. Nade for nade. On top of that, though, goes the MP5 on a perfect moment to actually get onto a rifle, onto an AK, onto the shelf, and onto another kill. Both Sandman and Cryptic have taken complete and utter control of this top side, and this leaves them in a pit in mid.
Yeah, and it's the jiggle / jump spot there from Cameron, so they now know that they're crossing back over to middle. Eyes on for Cryptic, who has made the adjustment to look back red room. The remaining 3 Zomblers are heading that way, but Cryptic just taking a straight up duel there, not trying to play his life. So instead of mid control maintained for Lag, it's going to be 2 split per site. It's looking in the right direction this time for both Cameron and Consti. Two members of Zomblers coming back through Temple. Well, Cameron just been spotted by Cool Comms, but I think that goes both ways. Still unsure about this position from Consti. Just waiting, just chilling. There's DJ's push all the way through Cave to catch fire. They don't know that Consti is still on default. This is perfectly played because Consti has both of those kills. Just play it quiet, close to the vest, and they never know Consti lies in wait.
Yeah, that's tough. It's just going to be Consti not budging from his initial nerve, right? Like, holding down that fort and not even needing to peek. He just stays tucked, crouched. Not showing a single inch of himself unless they're to walk through CT spawn. And, you know, I wouldn't call it necessarily a 50-50 that they go through Temple as opposed to going through spawn or anything like that. Percentage-wise, it doesn't really matter. It's just fortunate that that were to be the case in the first place. So, back to the old grind, back to these lesser buys, ones that we've seen Zomblers work with before, and frankly, still within 8K. I can't doubt them entirely.
It's a fun smoke, though, that makes life a little bit difficult. Sandman blows that. DJ coming back in will give a refrag. Bomb plant is a big deal. Could continue to allow Zomblers to play with additional pressure economically, but Cryptic, he's been here the whole time, and they really didn't know that until he pops around the corner. Utility for lag as they keep filtering on back through. Smoked off on the ramp. Spam for Cool Comms is going to be attempted, but those 35 bullets down the line in that direction can't quite line up the next, and the defuse comes out and off without a hitch. Lag take back the lead, and Zomblers survive with 2 rifles, and I think with the bomb down, that'll probably mean they just keep buying.
Little protect the president action. Not bad. Stuff up those bodies and keep the priority player 100% secure. Out through middle, Cameron eating a tinge of a nade. Immediately ducking back towards Donut. It's a pretty good spot to sit when they've got a lot working for them on the other edges just as well. It's just a battle of heart right now as to who has more of it to fight through these smokes. And as I mentioned earlier, Sandman really without major fears as far as going down the ramp. Cave, maybe a different story, but when Sandman calls it clear, it's a lot easier to justify it.
I think Lag getting tons of map control too at this point, and map control that I don't feel as if Zomblers can be affording to give up. Not that they're choosing that, but even as we talk about that and discuss it, it's Cryptic swinging from Cave into mid, catching off Cool Comms. And this round is just a non sequitur from the beginning. Zomblers locked out of B, locked out of mid. No question that they cannot move forward.
Mollies to flush out both sides. Sandman even going down the kill. So that's something that they probably would have loved to avoid if you are the Zomblers. Now in battling forward, Mello does his best, but there's just so much at 90 degree after 90 degree turn to try and contest with. Everybody getting a piece in these rounds, it feels like now. No shortage of entry points for every member of Lag to have their impact known.
Yeah, and that ends up being a pretty expensive round for Lag. If they would have just played a little bit more passively, they probably would have been able to be a little bit more dominant. But they're okay with just trading, being efficient with their trade frags, and that's a lot better than like the shaky beginning that we were just talking about. But I want to talk maybe long-term a little bit for Zomblers. I don't think their target on this T side needs to be anything crazy. I think they just need to survive this T side until they can get onto a CT side where maybe they can facilitate Poseidon a little bit more. And right now, I think they're doing that to a pretty decent degree, especially if they get one more round.
One more round. One more round. The crowd chants. Everybody out of their seats right now. This is the major final. Zomblers versus Lag, by the way. Boston 2028. Yeah. And they're looking for it. They're on the hunt. They're on the prowl. They're just on the precipice of being able to get a plant. And that one flashbang that Mello has could be a make or break play for them to get space, maybe that gun, something to work with in any meaning, and that will not be thrown. It will not be used until the last and dying breaths of Poseidon this round had a chance, a slim one, for there to be starting conversation. And that will be the finishing blow, I can only figure, moments. As he's got players all across, and even a little bit of additional BM to lay in.
I love that swing from Sandman. It's just so wide. I love it. It's so fun.
He's just playing the game, dude.
Yep. Big swings.
As one does.
Speaking of game, oh man, I have questions, but they're gonna have to wait. Final round of the half. Get a chance to see if Lag can extend this to 8, because 8-4 I think is a really quite impressive half. It's gonna be a 5-round half though from Zomblers. I'm feeling pretty good. You've done enough, though. Nice couple of nades. Mello and Cajun start the round at about 60 HP.
Okay. Seeing even further damage spanned by Cryptic's A1S, but through the fire goes Cool Comms. Almost a necessity, and I feel like there would have been room for something to happen, but how could Mello have ever anticipated there to be a walk through that smoke? This is just decision-making coming out from Lag. I feel like you don't often get from a lot of players and teams, right? I think that they have a certain sense of how they need to play this one as far as giving any room over and respect over to their opponents.
Yeah, it's competent decision-making. That's really what it comes down to, I feel like. Comms and Cajun. 2v4 recovery on the way. Cameron, though, going to get caught on the timing. Bomb down. So this turned to more of a 2v3. Again, nice flashbang to catch Consti. Push him back a little bit deeper. They know that grab this AK. Probably for the best. 2 smokes for the retake. Kits for everybody.
Yeah.
The smokes are the biggest problem.
Yeah, you just told them the biggest problem with this round, I was about to say. The smokes are just going to make it so complicated. Cajun, I mean, good lord. That's a tough one to end out the half on. It was just the lack of anything that they could use other than their bodies to try and find victory on that A site. As they go into that next half, though, it isn't going to get any easier. We're going to have to wait to see it. We're going to drop into a brief intermission. We'll be back in just
8-4 is the half that was just put together by a lag team that I think overall picked things up, put it all together nicely at the end of the half. It was a little bit rough at the very beginning. The way in which they clean that up, Tony, makes me feel as if those worries aren't really going to be a problem into the second half.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's definitely, I think, a lot to look back on with some smiles, some laughs, some frowns, some fist bumps on land if we're talking about individuals popping off. And
Yikes.
Pop-offs, the pistol was already actually completely devolved in literally 20 seconds. I can't even blame production. It was a minute and 30 when we gotten back, and it was a 5v1.
Yeah. That is not ideal, to say the least, and I'm saying that as a meme a little bit, but the reality is that lag kind of running as fast as possible towards the A site, overrunning any and all Zomblers that were in sight, and even those that were not. Easy cleanup. And I do think that you're kind of seeing the firepower issues come to fruition here, that we talked about, especially with regard to that T-half, and the fact that, you know, the rifling for Mellow and Fire just not quite enough currently. I think Cajun had a big round. Coolcom's had a couple of big impact frags to keep them in it. Now you're going to need Poseidon's Op to really come alive. And that is made even more difficult by the fact that now they won't have an AWP in the first gun round, considering that they're full ecoing here. I don't blame them for their full eco. This isn't a bad decision, but it is an unfortunate outcome.
It's going to be a tough scenario entering that next map.
Wow.
With this one that should have been the more competitive of them that I was thinking at the very least. Nice from Cameron to maybe cobble together an ace. Cryptic will steal it. A little bit greedy, but whatever. Kind of rude, dude. Let me have this type deal.
Yeah.
10-4. Buy is in. No off, as you say. Not really even going to be a talk of one unless they win this and then string together another and then just reinvest. But that's going to be a tough call to make. But they're still pretty much eye level as far as what they have to bring into this, seeing as two MAC-10s are still pushed forward alongside a Galil. Companionship to Sandman and Cameron's AKs. They're going to try and be the brunt of the action. Will these SMGs be the rifle to try and capitalize off any ground they gain? Oh, this is the Team Molly. It might spread.
No. I'm actually reacting to the fact that they double smoked that there as well.
Oh my.
Crazy from Cajun. Lined that up nearly perfectly, and DJ's at 11 health. So frustrating for DJ. That's a third smoke that's just been deployed, though, here, and it's really uncomfortable for Fire, who there's a gap on the right-hand side, so Cameron takes advantage of that. Good, though, for Poseidon, who has no problem nailing down Cryptic's SMG. The Sandman AK not quite good enough from the elevated position there on the boost. And it's looking good for Zomblers in the first gun round.
Yeah, I gotta say, I do like that mid-round re-aggression with those two players at the ramp. Cajun and Mellow making more than a good call, but that one feels a little bit egregious. Thankfully, Poseidon is also here, so even if both were to fall, he is the insurance policy looking for his fourth in this round. He's gotten a plant that he can likely let off from Consti without much an issue. It's what happens from then on that becomes the talk of the town.
I'm struggling here.
Oh, hold on, wait. Is he just going to walk on and get this one versus...
Yeah,
I
this
don't know.
is so winnable, though.
Yeah. I mean, as soon as that fades, he's a dead man.
Cave. They think he goes cave, and I don't blame him.
Oh, well, there's the only win condition to change is if they just sit and stick, and that's exactly what they'll do. That is very, very nerve-wracking all the way through, where literally a 1.5 second timing difference where that smoke were to fade might have meant the round for Consti.
Yeah, but listen, I think for handshakes all around, because everybody can feel good about themselves at the end of this round. Consti's saying that in team comms, like, you know, all good, they did the best thing they possibly could, and then also love the decision-making there from Zomblers, the trust that, hey, you know, we're just going to stick on this defuse, we have the kit, it might be a little bit unexpected. Poseidon playing inside the smoke there, I think, is a little bit unexpected, too, for lag. So, Works out pretty well, all things considered. And Lag will take attack pause right after that to talk about how they're going to work out their first, real gun round without the bonus.
Certainly gets to be big props to the CT side and how they react to each of those scenarios. It feels like, though, never really felt like that they were the ones in the box. And for the mere seconds that were the case, they immediately punch a hole in it in some way, shape, or form. Flashes out to mid. Cryptic playing for himself. Smoke to the Molotov. Flashes in support, but supplementary is the secondary of those fire bombs that are at his toes, and an additional flashbang to go along with it. So his efforts are in vain. The A site may have been taken, but at what cost?
Yeah, we'll see what the costs are here in a second. Because Mello, this guy, it looked like he had the lineup, does so much damage. And unfortunately, Zomblers aren't going to realize how significant that damage is, I don't think. There's no more nades on the CT side to lock down formation. DJ, slight off angle. Ooh, but the information spotted on the shadow won't matter. Nice shot from Cameron. Tap under the bomb. They aren't sticking this, but of course, Lag don't necessarily know that. Oh, just can take down the diffuser. Perfectly placed as Cameron can now start spamming. Oh, got the walkout. Okay. Takes far more bullets than he had anticipated, but he'll still win the round for Lag up to 11.
There's the reset to the very little cash prize won as these last couple of rounds have gone by for the Zomblers. They don't have even nearly as much as they would have liked to. They never got to full capacity in this CT side thus far, and I don't even foresee that to be a possibility in this game, as this is them putting thousands of dollars into what is still a laughingstock in comparison to the AKs and full utility belts of Lag. Side never really having the chance to fully spread his wings.
Yeah, I think this is just going to be a tragic kaput from Zomblers based on the way that things are going. Especially as we lose Mello early. Nice shot, though, out of Cool Comms. That's going to catch DJ. Consti could have been in some trouble. He has the bomb. He'll be running that away. And Cajun goes searching. I don't necessarily love that decision from Cajun, especially not when they're pushing A main so aggressively. Deagle does a lot more damage than it has any business doing, but still not enough to change the outcome of this round unless Side and Cool Comms have a 2v4.
Cameron's going to be holding on to, I believe, the half step he would have heard from Cool Comms early on. Locked in, focused on his position. Cryptic even dropping a smoke and then getting to shelf as well, but his opponent has since left, since fled, since been burnt off entirely. Cool Comms is gone. Poseidon also holds a rifle of high value. No retake to try. I don't even know if Sandman and Cryptic are both going to live this, but I don't really foresee there being a reason why they shouldn't. The bomb will blow. We will have ourselves one last chance to try and punch up, as this Ancient has not lived up to the expectations that I had myself personally, and also doesn't really spell out that much of a beauty point onto Mirage as the next of the maps in this best of three. It's starting to seem like pretty much everybody on Lag is here and awake, alive, ready. Even Cameron, who we were criticizing early on in this match, has had moments of, I'd say, elevated play. Much better than that of what we were expecting it to devolve into if the Zomblers had continued to pressure them.
Yeah, I mean, he just had the 1v1 a moment ago. I think that nade taste is so great there for Cool Comms. Cryptic's watching and waiting. Another double push into a main that Cryptic as well watching for. Vision still for Consti. But it's a nice couple of shots. Poseidon will get them both. Surely not. Just through the smoke, he does, and Mello wins that fight. Somehow this is a 2-on-2. Bomb not recovered. DJ got to be careful. Calls in the cavalry. Courtesy Sandman. Fortunately, Fire has just left mid. He doesn't really have the weapon for the job.
Hitting this one very well above the smoke for even another, his third in the round, with damage already inflicted on the previous players. Sandman is not close enough to trade. 50 seconds. Information. That's huge. He can, at the very least, hope to keep Poseidon at an easy enough duel, as he has been hit down low. I don't think Fire is all that far off, and that smoke will complicate things. It will be problematic for him to play around, and if Poseidon knows what's best for him, he'll just hold on to it like a hawk, knowing he couldn't have been that far off with the bomb on the ground. What a round. Easy is the last of those kills, perhaps, but nothing short of stellar, particularly for that first pair of players.
And even with all those kills, and even with the success there, Poseidon still can't afford an op, tragically. Poseidon will get them both. Have a chance to deliver in that context. This is not a great buy for Lag. 2 techs, 3 rifles. When the Sandman, Consti, and Cameron can facilitate a victory from these slim pickings.
Where to go off now with the scattered nades, one of which already having been whipped deep into red. An incendiary, or Molotov more accurately, will force cool comms much further in and also call a rotation. One with a warm welcome from Poseidon, who's now pretty much stuck in a duel if they are to go through. So, okay, a blinded Cameron, kind of just offering himself up to the slaughter. These jumping players pulling crosshairs a part of them, and they can recover. They can also maybe get a freebie on the Cajun, just jumping through the smoke. Okay, that's the end of the map, I suppose. Didn't think they would just go leaping and bounding through full sound, but if that's how they want to do it, that's how they gotta do it. 13-6.
Yeah, a little bit ridiculous the way that ends, but the stat line, or rather the score line, 13-6, tells you essentially all you need to know, that this was really not competitive from Zomblers. They won, the first half pistol. They got instantly for a spot on, lost the follow-up, and continued to struggle. Couple of recovery rounds in the process there, but equal at the half and just a couple of rounds in the second to get them somewhere, but it ultimately didn't feel like Zomblers was anywhere close to this map at all.
Yeah, they're going to need to show us a new life on the more individually leaned Mirage, as stated in the pre-show. You can get in a good day into that map and just have a field day with it. Doesn't necessarily need to be the most masterminded of maps in the pool, but we'll have to wait and see, as mentioned, whether or not Zomblers have it in them. Lag, I'd say that was a more than satisfactory victory on the first of these maps, the next of which on the horizon in just a bit.
Mid protocol set up here by Lag, and it's into this Cajun.
Actually, it's already been tested. Okay.
Continuing deeper into spawn.
In their individuals right now. From the next point, if it were even needed, they will be free-flowing than your average sub.
Not a particularly with
comes the pit stop of the off.
Consti being held with additional pressure. He can
base, maybe that gun. Something to work with in any meaning figure moment. Further damage to the fire goes cool calm. Biggest problem with this round, Cajun, I mean, good lord.
Lag are in the driver's seat of this best of 3 with elimination on the line in the lower bracket. I gotta tell you, John, it's feeling to me like we have got a Zomblers that is struggling in all the ways that we had anticipated might happen on that Ancient. We got Mirage up next. Is that gonna change anything?
I think it can, and I think that there are three big factors to that we can use as our base plate for that. And I think that those 3 things, in no particular order, are Cool Comms, Cajun, and Poseidon. I mean, look, the calling looked fine enough to good to really good, I would say, at the peaks of Zomblers playing that. Again, is considering they have a substitute. I think Poseidon and Cool Comms putting damage down range and just being at least relatively consistent fighting factors in a lot of the rounds that they had chances in is also pretty solid, let alone the fact that Cajun, as you had mentioned, came into that game as an individual and a caller and captain. Now, literally anybody of the 2 of Mellow or Fire could have a slightly better performance on this map, whereas the other 3 play as they were anticipated to on a map like Mirage, and I think that they could take it. I think that there is a world.
Well, I think part of the problem is that the lag on an individual level have looked insane. I mean, talking about that first map, individuals were popping off the page. Whether that be, an argument for Consti, an argument for Sandman. Honestly, DJ had some incredible moments, if I'm being completely blunt. It was a impressive show that we got to see. And that is definitely the other side of that argument when talking about it. But I want to go jump to that Poseidon point and say, bro, we got to get him some AWPs at some point. He spent the entire first map without an op. I don't think he had a single one. I was paying attention, and I didn't see any. And that's an issue when your best player is your opper, and he doesn't have the tool of the trade.
He did have an op for 2 total rounds on T side. I do know. He only got 1 kill with it. So, what do you think of the MVP for this one is going to be already as a little bit of an early on prediction if you had to point the finger in a specific way? If Lag were to take this series, though, is my question for you, because I've got mine.
See, I personally am leaning Sandman. I feel like he had some big clawback moments, some impressive, overall stats, to be honest with you. And just in general, I mean, Sandman's just been really consistent. Who were you thinking?
I don't want to jump the gun on this series and say that Lag outright won, but if it is going to be Lag to win, I think it's Sandman. I think I'm in the same boat as you, and I think that if we do see a return to form for this series, I think I might be even leaning outside of numbers in the way of Cajun, but for that last map, I think it would be Sandman for sure. And I'm curious to see who we have. Our production actually picked it for us. We have no idea who it is, so...
Oh, darn, we got.
We're stupid. Oh, we're so
Dude,
dumb.
what is that? That's a nuts cast, actually. That's a cool stat line for Consti, but the cast is actually what is impressed me the most out of that thing. Just because in general, like, I feel like I didn't feel like he was as active as that suggests. A lot of times he was towards A. Didn't necessarily have to get involved a couple of those times, especially with those B hits when there was a lot of B re-aggression. But as you can tell, I mean, he was delivering.
He had a round swing of almost 9% too, which isn't on this graphic, but it is on the HLTV, which is kind of out of this world, to be honest with you. Like anything above like 3 to 4 range is really, really solid, and anything higher than that is even better. But I'm curious to see if there is going to be a turnaround, because if we're going to talk about numbers here, Vincent, I think you'd be kind of shocked to maybe find that Poseidon went 14 and 11 that last game with a 5% plus round swing, almost 98 ADR with a 1.49 overall. So, given the fact that they kind of got slapped, and I didn't really feel like I was saying Poseidon's name very many a time, I think that is actually probably one of those sleeper activations as the game had progressed that maybe we can see steamroll into this one, seeing as this is, as mentioned, or I'm sorry, not as mentioned, Lag's map pick. It's the CT side start for Zomblers. At least I don't think we said it.
Yeah, here's the thing. What was Poseidon's RWS over that map? That's not a stat you can look at.
RWS.
But I'm just saying it wasn't impact in rounds they won. That's the point I'm getting at. So yeah, true. And I'm not really, it's not a point about Poseidon being bad there. It's just that, the impact didn't come in times where they were able to capitalize on it. And that needs to change. That's got to be an adjustment here for Zomblers. And I do think that will be the case. I mean, on Mirage specifically, I think that they'll be able to get a little bit deeper. My bigger problem about this Mirage, though, is, bro, I mean, we've been on the struggle bus for a hot second here if you're a Zomblers fan. On Mirage, it is 6 straight losses. Granted, almost all of them have been competitive, but a wide array of different teams that they have played all the way back to February, and that goes to Marsborn, but they were losing to Mythic, In Control, Aether as well, a couple of losses to Regain, and those are a little bit more understandable in my mind. But still, point is that this has not been a Mirage that's been kind to Zomblers recently.
No, it has not. And right now, the Zomblers are going to need some kindness shown to them. A lot of kindness shown to them. And not by strangers, but by those on the other side of the server who they have to be well acquainted with following that ancient Mellow on this site with a player at Sandwich, somewhat of a bait and switch setup even still. One under balcony as well, so they're going to spring into the fight, and all of them are going to get what they would have wanted, and maybe even more than that. Cameron, with their players having their backs turned, can't kill even a one, and they get their pistol round win, and it looks convincing.
You know, that was true back on Ancient, though, so I'm going to hold my breath. I'm going to wait before I make any silly statements of fact. Actually, low-key might not be forcing, so...
Say it.
Never mind. Okay, I'm gonna say it, dude. Cameron, what are we doing? Why are we buying a scout?
Oh, that's not what I was asking you to say, but...
I know. Okay.
Oh, he heard you. Come on. I would have supported that buy. I would have supported it if multiple people bought it.
Wrong.
And I would have been right. Oh, he bought the scout, bought a decoy, and then threw the decoy, and then sold the scout.
Oh, okay, never mind. I take it all back. Genius maneuvering. Except they're all
look
dead.
what it's done for them. Nothing.
Yeah, not much. Unfortunately, Cryptic trying the Kiwi sneak out of Palace.
Oh.
Honestly, they got a kill, and that's more than I thought they would get with 5 Glocks.
And a decoy.
And a decoy, my bad. I forget what team I was watching, but I was watching a European team the other day, and they kept buying decoys. They had so many decoys. They never threw them, and it made me angry.
Never threw them?
Yeah.
Why the hell are you occupying a spot in your inventory for not to throw them?
No. It was just like when they couldn't afford other things. It wasn't in lieu of other things.
All right, well then just throwing away $50 for fun is cool too, I suppose.
Yeah, basically. So anyway, sorry for derailing. Looks like this round's on rails though. Lag. Moving on out towards the A site. Cajun getting some vision. Lucky that not going to get punished for that situation, though Mellow is punished out middle. Might be more where that came from. Big kill from Cryptic, even as Poseidon shooting him in the back of the head. So Cool Comms has to be aware of the fight coming in from mid as he tries to worry about A.
I don't really know if I'm feeling a retake right now, considering all the positions that are occupied by the lag members. DJ on his 3rd kill there had gone undetected for just long enough, it felt, for him to actually have not been known. He tries to dodge that nade. He instead just kind of lets it hit his back and blow up right in front of him. Makes him an easier target. The DJ gets all of his kills in this map thus far from that round. And it'll be feel-good kills too, because they were important as ever. He had 2 players with their backs to stab.
Yeah, big moves from DJ. The refrag in mid, then he ensures that nobody is continuing to watch, and it did feel like, honestly, Zomblers forgot about the connector player. Maybe just couldn't afford to be looking that direction, but you see what it cost them around, in essence. Poseidon gets an op. Cajun pushing into Palace. A bit of activity from the CTs to start the round.
I can get behind this. Gonna need to be a shot, though. Crosshair placement is really good. There's a nade out for Sandman. A very smooth sailing gun to grab. It's the late round nades that worry me for Zomblers, so if they actually manage to get into a bomb site here, lag, that's where things might begin to spiral, but I don't really foresee them having that opportunity in the near future.
They're only now really getting mid control. They bombed a bunch of flashes over the top mid boxes, but they didn't really push any deeper into this area at that time. Now with that space, it's going to be a B split setup. Poseidon has just left the B bomb site. He was in position in market. Now he's got go. Mello up close. Okay, at least he got the one. Pretty ugly. And then that's even worse. Fire can't lock down the kill. Consti will go down, though. The time bought there for Poseidon to arrive. And the double for him as Cool Comms will finalize the round. It is just the one victory for Lag as they instantly get served another defeat.
Okay, well, looks like they can definitely dish it and take it right now, Zomblers. It's an immediate callback to Ancient where we were saying to ourselves, will we ever get Poseidon on that CT sniper? And this is like the I wouldn't say the test. This round is definitely not the test, but this will be the call to whether or not it even would have mattered, potentially, if he's already able to get this game so hot started. If he can continue to raise his level even further beyond. I mean, the Deagles are once more similar to that last round with rifles, not going to be able to get across any forward positioning to try and actually close distances, let alone get covered track, covered ground. And with that fact, with mid being as empty as it is, only just, I believe, Cryptic at the top of those boxes, B is where we want to finish up.
Perfect time on the molly, I think. Now gonna do some damage, causes some chaos. His fire
Nice.
delivers the triple in defense. You know, that's one of the guys that was really in need of the step up, I think, on the Ancient. Stats wise, the lowest rated player on the map. He did 4 and 16. Pretty well above that. Now he's going to put together the quad, sure, against the eco, but you got to take those opportunities when you're a B anchor.
Got to take the opportunities. All about them opportunities, aren't you, Vincent?
Yep. Taking advantage of them.
Yeah.
Just like Lag. Got to take advantage of the opportunity that squad that beat them last cup, they ain't here.
They ain't here.
No one's standing in their way.
All but Zomblers for right this second. And a lot of regular mid-control tendencies coming out from Zomblers that, frankly, Lag haven't even seen for a lack of trying. So, they don't really have a full pulse, in my opinion, on how this map is actually being fleshed out by their opponents on defense just yet. And that could prove to be a problem long-term if they do continue to run into this A site like a brick wall. And they will attempt to clear out ramp. It will needed to have been a double for Cameron to make it 100% a certainty that they can swing in safely, but there goes the trade out, up on positioning, and Mello can't really help. He's got a FAMAS, no... He's left only just now, that one HE. He could lob over and maybe kill DJ, depending on the timing as the planter.
Yeah, but this is sort of a painful way to try and get back in here. They just got made aware of the AWP here. Another missed shot isn't great. Nade thankfully gonna fly it wide as Consti repositions. Jeesh. What a ridiculous trio of frags all coming in nearly at once from Lag. I think they had that post plant locked up pretty nicely, but a dominant way to close it in any case.
Yeah, and I also want to just make a note of the fact that DJ is looking pretty sharp when it comes up to the straight 1 versus 1 50-50 heads-up aim duels. You know, that one round where he got a 4K. Every other round he might not have gotten very much, but this round there, I mean, that is a snappy one on to Mello.
Oh yeah, it is.
No flashes in his face, no smokes to play around, no numbers to abuse if it's him and another player. If he locks horns with them, it gets a little bit scary if that continues onward.
I actually think that's one of the biggest assets that DJ brings, right, to this Lag team. That was the question I had when he first came in. Like, what was the individual efforts going to look like for him? And I think he's constantly not surprised me, but, like, impressed me. his capability of doing that. Occasion, big damage onto Cryptic. He and Sandman now both low. He keeps on pressing forward. He's an important informational and control piece of this attack, though continuing forward is a mistake that will cost him his life. The bomb planted in the meantime.
Shouldn't be a crazy problem. They do have another flashbang from Consti at the ramp. He can safely let it loose to maybe play support, and Sandman's on the run. He's on the move. That flash will stall them for maybe just long enough. I think they actually literally will get there right in the second in which Sandman has them on their cross. DJ with a 1, that'll be enough for them to feel comfortable. A second, though, that is something you couldn't have expected, and they're going to pressure their way ahead. They're going to continue to push Ardent even deeper onto this player after player. They will fall on fire. I mean, he's all the way in spawn, but they're not even going to really care about his presence, about his existence. He can save if he so pleases.
Well, you were talking about running the A-hit again and again. Heads into a brick wall, something like that. That was the description. Yeah. Well, I'd say that the brick wall has lost in that engagement. Over these last couple of rounds, lag win twice over. And it's, I guess, in some ways, some resiliency for them to go back to that well a couple of times and just be, you know, comfortable and confident in their attack and in their execute, but same time, maybe begs the question for Zomblers.
Okay. I didn't even look at their guns. I just realized the camera got that double. I was like, what's going on over at A?
We pushing. We out here.
This would be nice for Mello if he could get the drop on him. Can't quite make it. And the last of these players, very similarly to the anti-eco 4K Cameron had on T-side last map, may just be stolen out by Cryptic.
Yeah. Whilst we have a second, I want to go back to talk about the Zomblers team in a more general sense. Because, like I said, I mean, I am a noted Zomblers enjoyer, right? Like, this core team that I cheer for just because I think that they've put in a lot of good work. But I really am struggling to see the next step here for them when they're bringing back Hambuga and Fire. And it's not about those guys individually. It's about, it didn't work before, why will it work now? That, I don't think I have an answer to. I haven't seen a good answer from anybody.
I mean, if you want the truth, in my opinion, it's that they kind of need to be the ones to give us the answer. And via results. I don't really think that there is a reasoning with it, because, you know, unfortunately for them, that was the roster of the 5 with Fire and Hambuga that had brought them both to their peaks, and also some of their lowest lows at the end of it prior to the shift over to Polo and Grape, right? So it's weird.
Yeah.
It was working until it wasn't.
I wonder if that's ever happened in CS history.
What's
Cut
that?
A player or 2 players, bring them back, and the peak be better.
Fnatic, maybe. That wouldn't be better. Their peak, I guess.
Yeah, though that's like kind of unfair. I'd say that fits the bill a little bit.
Minus Chris J plus Chris J, minus Olaf plus Olaf. I don't know. One of those things in there probably has an interesting conversation to be elaborated upon. But right now, focusing in on this round and putting a lens on a DJ, the ones who's regularly getting them their 1v1s and won a second of them. How has DJ killed Cajun? I actually don't even know. He had no health. He had no right.
Oh, and it felt like Consti had just had that line. Fortunately,
surely not another one.
For Zomblers, they escape. And speaking of, oh, poor Zomblers, naded, flashed off, Mellow and Fire. They're just getting buffeted by utility bit after bit. It's allowed lag to just step deep into this post-plant positioning. Now, sort of a crossfire. Bomb planted effectively. The push continues, and Mellow tries to suss that out, but Fire, he's got too much to do, not enough time, and not enough health. Nothing going well there for Zomblers as lag have just continued to post round after round. It seemed at 4-1 that things were coming a little bit unraveled for lag. Well, it's right then that they have corrected the record and they have not looked back.
That's an interesting point you brought up before. I'm gonna actually do some diving in on. I like that. I liked that conversation point that you.
I knew you
rose.
would. That's why I kept it for you.
You seeded something in the back of my mind that's just not going to be able to be shaken until I get my data. So right now we've got ourselves just a couple of pistols, some nades. You can get a little bit curious onto a push at some point in this round if we're Zomblers. Do something a little bit outside the box as the smoke hits the cat. It's Cryptic who will kind of abuse it, just firing amidst it and creating some chaos that may make it easier to entry from B, but these halls have still not yet been flushed.
Yeah, they actually, I was going to say, kind of have some pieces in the right spot here at B. Unfortunately, it just doesn't matter. Sandman, successful. They already had cat control, and they sprint up in that direction. So, a good amount of damage done to the HP bars, but unlikely for Zomblers to be able to complete that. Scenes for Zomblers looking a little bit spooked. I think there's a lot of positivity, though, for the upcoming round. Gonna have Poseidon on an op. I'd love to see something a little bit explosive from him. Looks as if Cool Comms and Cajun just gonna be happy enough to hang on to their Kevlar and pistols. A few nades as well for Cajun. As they get deeper, closer to the end of this half.
Terrorists win.
A little rhythm. That'd be cool. I don't know if they probably exist somewhere in some capacity, but like a Counter-Strike like rhythm game.
There's
Or like you have to
definitely
like
a custom map.
kind of like Osu, you know what I mean? Where you have to like
Yeah.
aim your crosshair at the beat point. That'd be kind of cool.
Real knowers will know, but if you warm up using Osu, you might be the guy.
I used to use a ton of different games to warm up for CS to varying degrees of success. I think one of my most successful ever was probably Apex or Overwatch.
I've actually
My
heard Apex before a couple of times, and I think
My
that's a
tracking
good
was
shout.
yeah, my tracking and my first bullet accuracy was a little bit better with each of those.
Yeah, Apex track, also Overwatch tracking.
My Overwatch
really
tracking
good.
was definitely better. Yeah, maybe my sprays weren't very good, but the tracking the tracking was pretty good.
Other games aside, ground as we highlighted before, Cajun, he hasn't really stopped with these aggressive looks towards A. I mean, he's been in a ramp almost
I don't
constantly
hate it
kills.
either.
No, and for the most part, it's not like he's getting punished without getting kills either at any point. He's either been successful or he's getting information and Lag don't know about it.
Yeah. I want to see to what degree Cryptic finds success or a lack of it in con. He sat there and heard them rotating, actually, to where that should be a warning sign onto DJ to know that this backside will be compromised. It will be with a good number of CTs to deal with. Presence of mind from Poseidon as he turns to his left. He's exposed even still, and Cryptic will swing only at that point in time. It's worked out perfectly, fading the smoke. Cool Comms has actually evaded them initially. Cameron, he's low enough to where if Cool Comms goes for this swing, he's going to need to do it with just enough room to keep himself closed off. Bomb on his back, but he is going to be more focused on Cryptic, who's fully sprinting on Catwalk intentionally to draw away his crosshair.
Yeah, that's good. Or good recovery there from Lag. Situation where Zomblers had gotten the 3 players on the B bomb site that they needed. Realistically, I think the bigger problem that they were experiencing at that moment was that their riflers weren't separated into a crossfire. They were both site side, or really more bench side. And as you and I could both see, Poseidon was stuck between multiple different angles in which he was responsible for as he comes flying in as well to lock down the cat player, but there's more where that came from. And remember, it was 4-1. Lag might be about to close this 7 rounds in a row. That is, if they can convert this success. I do think it's funny that Cameron has 15 armor left, and he has 15k.
Oh, that's a tough burn from fire that will be heard, and it'll also be utilized well because he'll be not only fought off, but I thought there would have been an A-side execution at that point in time with ugly rotations. Instead, it gets a little crazy, a little bit hectic, and Cameron on a couple of misses. That will not be the best way for a round that could have otherwise looked like a masterpiece from Lag to fall apart.
Yeah, this still has a lot of win conditions, though. The bomb gets planted uncontested, so Zomblers can't touch into that. Cryptic in a deep position. Oh, they're just going for the double swing, and that's understandable, but now Cryptic's in a 1v3. Needs the quad kill in order to convert this. Knows where the last two are located.
Oh.
It's Poseidon forces the fight. Zomblers will get themselves another round.
Could have been something a little crazier, 7-5 at the half split, not even, but I think Lag are going to be pretty happy with that. But also, I really got to keep your chin held high if you are the Zomblers. This is not yet done, and they've got a couple players turning up and in as we have ourselves one more map here to conclude, a third on the horizon. If Zomblers can bring themselves back from the dead, we'll see in just a moment if Mirage has any more kick left in it. Hey everyone, hasn't been that long, only 90 seconds in case you forgot, which in case you did, I hope you should probably get that checked out. Why not? This is at my proverbial side, Vincent, and we're going to be bringing you to the ends of this map and potentially further beyond that. Vincent, what are the odds that we send ourselves to a third in D2?
You know, listen, I'm not paid to be an odds maker, but if I were to put the odds at it, I think it's probably about a 30-ish% chance, maybe a little lower.
Okay.
That we get to a Dust 2. I'm giving them maybe a little bit more credit than the Zomblers deserve, because looking at their T-side win rate, it ain't great on this Mirage. Got a 37% win rate, and I think that is probably more to do with the fact that they have struggled so heavily in these last 6 maps of Mirage than their general T-side capabilities. I think that I got a lot of respect for what Cajun can do on that.
See if they're going to be able to throw themselves onto the saw and cut further into this series, as the pistol on the last was a flawless one for Zomblers. It could not have been farther from the truth on the attacking end. They just get melted, particularly by Consti. Even at that point in time that they hit 8, it's going to be a matter of pace, I think, for what they look to set against these Zomblers guys, where I feel like on Ancient there was very little to no respect coming through, for better or worse, from Lag. I think that they were like walking smokes pretty regularly. They were even honestly leaving themselves susceptible to swings on other positions that maybe they shouldn't have been so comfortable in doing, but other times it was working out well enough. So it's got its, double-edged sword feature.
Bro, you're talking about pace. I'm like blown away by the speed of those rotates that Lag just put together.
True.
And man, called in the cavalry fast. They were
pretty forward.
SAP. DJ.
Yeah. Oh.
That's a reswing that won't be ideal. Hey, Cryptic, probably want your gun out for that next fight. A lot of risks, I feel, being taken here.
Yeah.
Considering it's blocks, that's not a big deal, though DJ, of course, will have fallen in the process.
A lot of rinky-dinky dinks going on around there from the Glocks.
Mm-hmm.
You laughing at me? Did I say something funny?
Yeah, you did. Keep it up.
Well, thanks.
You're a funny guy.
Every now and again. Now, nothing funny about the position that they're going to be posted in Zomblers if they can't break down one round on these rifles to avoid double digits and likely the 11th as their finances are drained from their pockets down below. Just going to be some provocative nades is the fact that they might be fighting out in mid, which both of these teams are effectively pumping up their chests in that regard. One more so than the other, I would say, in the side of Lag, as they've just dipped back all the way over and beyond. I can't imagine that they're just going to be able to barrel their way through to this site for free. And getting that one kill, a big one, but Consti consistently catching them off.
Oh, he's done it again. He got 2 out of that situation.
All right.
That's bad news if you are Zomblers T side, because now it's an even scenario. That's a good lurk from Cool Comms. Sandman still looking to keep this on ice. I really felt like Cool Comms was playing a dangerous game. Thought he was too aggressive. No, he just stuns the man sitting and waiting for him. Ridiculously strong couple of kills from Cool Comms that puts this round down and dusted for Zomblers.
They'll certainly be happy with that. They can get themselves picked up by the bootstraps. EJ, he is not that far away. It would take a nice little spray through that wood wall, and one that very nearly does land. It feels like it wasn't that far off from seconds earlier. Going one more time at it, throwing the last of their cash across all the members left over with that weapon. It's actually even slightly better buy than last round, I would go as far as to say. And no op to be clashed. That conversation won't come upon us in the second half just yet. So this could be one of the more interesting rounds of them all, given that there's no special X factor to be made note of. And it's a lean towards B pretty quickly with one just faking A nades.
Yeah, this is very immediate.
Ooh.
But interesting. Sandman, oh, he is about to walk into a whole lot of hurt. Help is coming. DJ is on Cat, but I don't know how much he can realistically do. A little bit of damage, but it's more the other way. Consti, the world. He's just lined up 2. He's in market window. They didn't have time to put down the utility as they had seen Sandman running, so it's a man advantage for Lag. More to find as Cameron collects another frag. 2 left alive, but now it's both directions. Cameron 1v2, and he does deliver. Everything happening in a blink of an eye, but Lag come out on top.
Killer instincts coming out from a team that frankly looked like they were a little bit, for my money, too far on the back foot for that retake. I feel like, obviously Sandman intended to be a little bit of an early warning system for one. but also hopefully to find a kill. And when he is to die like that, I feel like that they just had ground that should have been used a little more effectively maybe, but you can't really deny the shots that are being sent out by someone who started as a Struggle Bus member on Ancient and now has since skyrocketed to the top sides of the Ancient, or excuse me, Mirage board. KMRN, op tag for Poseidon, constantly limping. And that's an investment they've made intentionally to try and activate him in the best way possible.
Well, Cameron's here. This is DJ. They haven't currently smoked DJ off either, so DJ gets a free kill. Cameron activates it, pivots back to the other man coming through the palace smoke, and DJ with providing overwatch for all of them. Honestly, that feels like with that round, this game might just be over in a flash.
What a beautiful A-hold from those two. I mean, it looked sequential, the kills that they were pulling for Alf, and you could see it from, you know, DJ's point of view, how Cameron was playing it from the top side of the balcony with such fluidity, turning from player to player, and DJ had, you know, the freedom to just fire off on players barely even looking at him, and that's the greatest service from Cameron to DJ of them all. He makes his life all the easier.
It's not that crazy not to have a CT smoke. I just wonder where the flashes are that are meant to be holding DJ back a little bit. Like he's allowed to do whatever he wants, whenever he wants in that defense.
Okay, Coolcom's found himself a sneaky little pick down there and underpass to start things off, though, but immediately turned over by Cameron, who catches Cajun on a walk, maybe a little bit too far a stroll.
Yeah, that's another moment where I feel like maybe Cajun trying to find a little bit more than he should be allowed to anyway. All right, doing his best to try and facilitate another frag, but Tom's over here at B. Sandman, oh, not quite caught. Shot for Mello. Coolcom's dead. Poseidon will follow. And now fire. Soul Man still over at A.
Just trying to get himself a pick. A little extra money, force a reinvestment. That one's actually pretty solid. On to DJ, leaves Consti in peril at 33, and Cameron just as the highest of them all in the right place should he be required for the swing. Another multi to his name, and he is not slowed down in the slightest. They are actively asking him to try and take a duel on, and to which he will oblige with a smile. Double the round count again, nearing the same fate as the first map already in this series. Reminder that this is going to be the lower bracket semifinal. Elimination for the loser here. Advancement into the lower bracket final for the victor to play up against one of In Control or Farmville, currently In Control up by a map on the other sides of that. And the victor also securing themselves at least $1,000 at 5th, 6th if they're to bomb out then and there. So there is a lot of implications already on the board.
Good point. Money match in reality. Not just the placings as well. Towards A, lag starting heavily. Excuse me, Zomblers. Making themselves so known in that area just yet. Cajun about to throw another window smoke. And we're missing
or
it.
is he?
Oh, just kidding.
It's actually disguised as a bad bottom con smoke so that the CTs peek and think that they've got the advantage, but in actuality, they do.
Genius. Consti initially seems unaffected by the flash. More flashes, though, to come. Smoked out. We're just going to let him have the site.
Go, 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 move, move, move.
Dude, a full evacuation of jungle into CT. Same true for the T's. The flash comes flying, and it's all to the CT side. Cameron. Oh, how about all three for Cameron? News stops right there for Zomblers as Coolcom's going to have to do more of that with himself all alone. Oh, 1v4 ace clutch necessary. They're already on the defuse, and with that, the round will be lagged back-to-back 13 6s to ship Zomblers off out of this cup.
Dude, Cameron, what an absolutely incredible Mirage. I mean, just watching him in each of those defensive rounds swing into each of these fights where, frankly, he shouldn't be good for more than 2, let alone 2 in some instances there, then on, so quick to kill on every member of Zomblers who were just desperate to try and get their opener. They were funneling through that murder hole, as you were saying, and trying to get back to spawn as quick as possibly could be, and it looked like it was the absolute best call as well.
Yeah, and listen, I think that there's a lot of potential negativity towards Cameron at times when, you know, there's moments, and we saw some of them at the early stages of Ancient where he can struggle, but he can also take over games. And I've been a big proponent of Cameron ever since he got picked up on this lag team, and I think that maps like this are a reason that I continue to be one of his opponents. And so, you know, you can kind of see the impressiveness, the capability that he can provide to a team that, like we've been highlighting already, really isn't lacking firepower when it comes to this type of competition against a squad like Zomblers.
Yeah, I can concur with that. And as mentioned, a top side of this lower bracket with In Control and Farmville actively going on as well. So if you do want to catch that one, that is over on Buckethead's Twitch. If you're unfamiliar, he's a great caster, great guy. You should check it out. See who will be meeting lag in that next step and next stage. And then on the absolute top side of things, you got Regain F5. A pretty crazy matchup, I think, considering the fact that most teams probably would have anticipated such a run from F5 in particular for this season, but they haven't played against too many of the big dogs yet.
You say that. I mean, Farmville is a relatively competent squad. Alpha 49, of course. A lot of apparently things blowing up over there.
Not a lot of tenure, though. You know, not a lot of as far as like being together for a long time or anything like that. I mean, F5 have been.
They have, yeah, and props to them for like sticking it out. By the way,
yeah.
So, you know, at least a top 6 finish here for Zomblers. There's a small victory in the overall defeat and elimination for
bit of money.
Yeah, I mean, big news and good news for a team like Zomblers, right? When you're talking about a team like them, you know, that prize money is very meaningful.
No, I like money. I think that I would probably also be pretty happy with that. I don't know who couldn't be, but you know, I think that's going to pretty much put a wrap and a nice little bow on our day. I mean, it's been an eventful and exciting matchup, particularly for Lag, who kind of needed this one. You know, I think that they needed the win in general, but they also just needed to show that they could do it against the team with a sub and trying to gap themselves between some of the other tier 2.5, tier 2 of North America, and really, I think, reclaim some of the blemishes they've had on them recently on LAN and offline as well.
Yeah, and they are well on their way to do that. At least that's the game plan. Same situation for them where they should be at least moving towards a grand final. That's what at least I see in their future. We'll have to see if that is the final destination. But as you say, it's going to bring us to the end of our show. Been a pleasure to take you through all the action as we have had the pleasure to do. I at least will be back tomorrow where we will be saying hello, I think, to Mark with me. So we'll see you then. Thank you so much for watching. Peace out.
Bye.
An ugly mid protocol set up here by Lag, and it's
already been tested. Okay. More free flowing than your average.
It's not a particularly with Consti being held at fault. This is perfectly played because Consti, with additional pressure, he can.
It's gonna be a tough. This one that should have been the more competitive of them that I was thinking at the very least.
Got the. Never mind. I take it for trying the OPs.
I don't really know if I'm feeling a read. Their placement.
Consti will go down though. The air from Poseidon. First time on Molly, I think. And it isn't great. Nate keeps on pressing informational and control.
Okay. I didn't even
have a second. I want to go back to
flushed.
Yeah,
backside will be compromised with a good number of CTs that so closed off. Bomb. That's a tough burn from fire. That instead it gets a little crazy.
Convert this. Those were the last two.
To the saw and cut further into this series as the pistol on the last was a
DJ.
Yeah,
considering it blocks that
catching them off.
Collects another frag. 2 left alive, but now it didn't smoke DJ off either. So DJ Cameron activates his hit. Goal into CT. Same true for the T's. The flash comes flying, and it's all for this clutch necessary. They're already on the defuse, and with that, the round will be lagged back-to-back 13.